You see, everything we do, every action, every goal, every relationship, starts long before it happens in the real world. It begins here. In the mind, the difference between someone who gives up and someone who grows isn't talent. It's not even intelligence, it's mindset. Because mindset determines how we interpret the world, how we face challenges, and how we rise when things fall apart. Most people think success is about strategy. They ask, what's the secret? What's the formula? But the truth is, strategy doesn't matter if your mindset isn't ready. You can have the best plan in the world, but if you see failure as the end instead of part of the process, you'll stop. You'll quit. You'll never see what you're truly capable of. Mindset is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about believing that whatever happens, you can learn, adapt, and continue. It's not optimism, it's responsibility. The responsibility you own your attitude when you can't control your circumstances. There's a story I often think about. Two people go through the same challenge. Let's say they both lose their job. One person says, "That's it." The other says, "This is hard, but maybe this is my chance to build something new." Same event, completely different outcomes, all because of mindset. When we understand this, we stop blaming the world and we start building ourselves. We stop chasing validation and we start pursuing growth, because mindset isn't about what we get, it's about who we become. Every great leader, every innovator, every person who's made a difference had one thing in common: they believed in possibility even when no one else did. They didn't wait for perfect conditions, they created them. That's mindset. Think about this. Your mind is the lens through which you see everything. If the lens is dirty, full of fear, doubt, and negativity, you can't see clearly. But if you clean that lens with curiosity, humility, and purpose, the same world suddenly looks full of opportunity. So, the question isn't what are you capable of doing? The question is what are you capable of believing? Because what you believe shapes how you act, and how you act shapes your life. Mindset is not everything because it magically changes your reality. Mindset is everything because it changes you, and you are the one who creates your reality. So start with your thoughts. Guard them. Challenge them. And remember, your mindset is the foundation of every dream, every relationship, and every legacy you'll ever build. Because when your mind is right, everything else will follow. Our mindset is the lens through which we view everything in life. It determines how we see challenges, how we respond to failure, and even how we define success. Two people can experience the exact same situation and walk away with completely different interpretations. Not because the situation was different, but because their mindset was. Think of mindset as the internal filter that colors our perception of the world. When that filter is clouded by negativity, fear, or self-doubt, everything we encounter seems harder, heavier, and more discouraging. But when that filter is clear, filled with curiosity, gratitude, and growth, suddenly the same world looks brighter, more open, and full of possibility. The world doesn't change, we do. Let's take a simple example. Imagine someone receives constructive criticism at work. A person with a fixed mindset might think, "I'm not good enough, I failed." They take the feedback as an attack on their identity. But someone with a growth mindset sees the same situation and says, "This is an opportunity to improve, I can learn from this." Same words, different worlds. The difference lies not in what was said, but in how it was perceived. That's the quiet power of mindset. It doesn't just affect how we think, it shapes what we see. If you believe people are generally untrustworthy, you'll find evidence to prove it. If you believe people are kind, you'll see kindness everywhere. Our minds are constantly filtering information to confirm what we already believe. That's why cultivating the right mindset is so important. It sets the tone for what kind of world we live in. When we adopt a mindset of growth and possibility, we start noticing things that others miss. We spot opportunities in problems, lessons in failure, and strength in struggle. This doesn't mean we ignore reality, it means we interpret it differently. Where others see endings, we see beginnings. Where others see obstacles, we see potential. Leaders, creators, and innovators all share this ability to shape perception through mindset. They don't deny difficulties. When challenges, they read peered, find them. They ask, what can I learn from this? How can this make me better? They understand that success is not determined by what happens to them, but by how they interpret what happens. In relationships, mindset plays the same role. If you believe people can change, you approach conflict with patience and empathy. If you believe they can't, you respond with frustration or fresh distance. The mindset you carry into any relationship shapes not only how you see others, but how they respond to you. Even our happiness depends more on mindset than on circumstances. Studies have shown that people who cultivate gratitude and perspective often feel happier regardless of their material situation. It's not because their lives are easier. It's because they choose to focus on what's good rather than what's missing. When we realize that mindset shapes perception, we begin to understand that we have far more control over our experience than we think. We can't always choose our environment, but we can choose the lens through which we see it. That's where true freedom begins, not in changing the outside world, but in transforming our inner one. So, ask yourself, what kind of lens are you looking through? Are you focused on limits or possibilities? Problems or progress? The story you tell yourself every day becomes the reality you live in. If you change the story, you change your life, because ultimately the world you see is a reflection of the mindset you hold. shape your mindset, and you shape your perception. Shape your perception, and you shape your destiny. Failure is one of life's greatest teachers, yet it's the one most people try hardest to avoid. We've been conditioned to see failure as something shameful, something that defines our worth or limits our potential. From an early age, we're taught to succeed, to win, to get it right. But rarely are we taught how to fail well. And yet, every person who has ever achieved something extraordinary has one thing in common: they learn to embrace failure as a necessary part of growth. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the process. Every setback holds a lesson, every mistake carries feedback, and every defeat refines our strength. The problem isn't failure itself, it's how we respond to it. Some people see failure as proof that they're not capable, and they give up. Others see it as proof that they're learning, and they keep going. The difference between the two is mindset. When you treat failure as an enemy, you live in fear. You stop taking risks. You play small to avoid disappointment. But when you see failure as a teacher, you begin to experiment, to explore, to grow. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What will I learn if I do?" That one shift changes everything. Every great inventor, artist, and leader has been a student of failure. Thomas Edison made thousands of unsuccessful attempts before creating the light bulb. When asked how it felt to fail so many times, he famously said, "I didn't fail. I just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's the mindset of someone who understands that failure isn't fatal, it's formative. Failure exposes what we don't know. It reveals weaknesses we need to strengthen and habits we need to change. It pushes us to confront our limits and expand them. Without failure, we'd never question our methods, improve our systems, or build resilience. Success can make us comfortable. Failure keeps us humble, alert, and hungry. One of the most powerful lessons failure teaches is resilience. It trains us to get back up when life knocks us down. The truth is, we don't build strength by avoiding pain. We build it by enduring it. Failure hurts, yes, but that discomfort is what develops emotional endurance. The people who thrive in life are not those who never fail. They're the ones who learn to recover faster. In leadership, failure plays an even greater role. The best leaders don't hide their failures, they share them. They understand that vulnerability builds trust and that learning from mistakes creates stronger teams. When leaders model resilience, they give others permission to try, to risk, to learn. Failure, in this sense, becomes a culture of progress rather than punishment. Yet, to see failure as a teacher requires humility. It means accepting that you don't have all the answers. It means being willing to look foolish, to admit mistakes, to start again. But humility is not weakness, it's strength under control. It's the courage to keep learning when ego wants to quit. When you change your relationship with failure, everything changes. You stop fearing the unknown and start exploring it. You stop judging yourself for what went wrong and start asking what it's teaching you. Each failure becomes a stepping stone, guiding you closer to mastery. So, the next time you fall short, don't hide from it. Study it. Reflect on it. Let it sharpen you. Because failure isn't here to stop you, it's here to shape you. In the end, the people who reach the top aren't the ones who never failed, they're the ones who refused to let failure define them. They learned, adapted, and grew stronger each time. And that's the ultimate truth: failure is not your enemy. It's your most powerful teacher. One of the hardest lessons to learn in life is that we can't control everything. We can't control what other people think, how they act, or what happens around us. Yet, so many of us spend enormous energy trying to control outcomes, situations, and even people, only to end up feeling frustrated, anxious, and powerless. The truth is, control is an illusion. What we can control, however, is how we respond. And that is where our true power lies. Responsibility is not about taking blame, it's about taking ownership. It means recognizing that while we may not choose our circumstances, we always choose our mindset, our actions, and our attitude. This distinction is what separates victims from leaders. Victims, "This happening to me?" Leaders ask, "What can I do with what's happening?" Responsibility shifts the focus from what's outside our control to what's within our reach. When we chase control, we exhaust ourselves trying to manipulate outcomes. We resist change, fear uncertainty, and fight against anything that doesn't go according to plan. But when we embrace responsibility, we find peace in knowing that our response defines our experience. We stop reacting to life, and we start leading it. Think about the most resilient people you know. They're not calm because their lives are easy. They're calm because they've accepted that they can't control the storm. They can only steer their ship. They understand that their power doesn't come controlling the waves, but from controlling how they navigate them. That's responsibility in action. This mindset transforms how we lead, how we work, and how we live. In leadership, for instance, trying to control every detail creates fear and dependence. Teams stop thinking creatively because they're afraid of making mistakes. But when leaders model responsibility instead of control, they empower others to think, decide, and grow. They trust their people to take ownership, and in return, those people rise to the occasion. Responsibility builds trust, control destroys it. In relationships, the same truth applies. You can't control another person's emotions, reactions, or choices, but you can take responsibility for how you communicate, listen, and show up. When you stop trying to change others and start focusing on your own behavior, relationships deepen. You create space for respect instead of resistance. Even in personal growth, a shift from control to responsibility is life-changing. Many people wait for perfect conditions to start something, when they have more time, more money, more clarity. But responsibility says, start where you are with what you have. It reminds us that progress doesn't require control, it requires commitment. You don't need to control the outcome, you just need to control the effort. When things go wrong, taking responsibility means refusing to play the blame game. It's easy to say, it's not my fault. But responsibility isn't about fault response. It's the choice to ask, what can I learn? How can I grow? What's my next step? That question turns frustration into focus and setbacks into strategies. Choosing responsibility over control doesn't make life easier, but it makes it more meaningful. It frees you from the anxiety of trying to take the unpredictable and anchors you in what's real. Your choices, your discipline, your growth. In the end, we find peace not in mastering the world, but in mastering ourselves. Control looks powerful, but it's fragile. Responsibility looks humble, but it's unshakable. When you live from a place of responsibility, you stop being a prisoner of circumstances and become a creator of outcomes. So stop trying to control everything. Focus on what's within you, your mindset, your attitude, your choices. Because when you take responsibility, you reclaim your power. And that's where real leadership and real freedom begins. Would you like me to expand the next keynote? Growth begins where comfort ends, in the same motivational and Simon Sinek style tone. Growth never happens in the comfort zone. It happens in those moments when we are uncertain, challenged, and uncomfortable. It's in those moments when we stretch beyond what's familiar that we truly evolve. Comfort feels good. It's safe, predictable, and easy, but comfort never changes us. The truth is everything you want. Growth, confidence, mastery, purpose, lives on the other side of discomfort. Human beings are wired to seek safety. Our brains prefer routines, familiar surroundings, and predictable outcomes because they minimize risk. But that same instinct that keeps us safe also keeps us stuck. We avoid hard conversations, difficult goals, and uncertain paths because they make us uneasy. Yet, every meaningful achievement in history was born from someone's willingness to step into discomfort and stay there long enough to learn something new. When you do something new, whether it's starting a business, leading a team, or learning a skill, you always face resistance. That resistance is not a sign that you're doing something wrong, it's a sign that you're growing. Muscles don't grow without tension, and neither do people. Growth requires friction. It requires courage to move forward when every part of you wants to stay comfortable. Consider the caterpillar that becomes a butterfly. Inside the cocoon, transformation is painful. The caterpillar's body literally breaks down before it reforms into something new. But without that struggle, there would be no wings. Growth works the same way. The struggle you're avoiding might be the very thing preparing you for the next version of yourself. Comfort has a seductive voice. It tells you to stay where you are because it feels good. It convinces you that you're not ready yet, that you need more time, more clarity, more confidence. But confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after. Every time you face discomfort and move through it, you teach yourself that you're capable. You build trust with yourself, and that trust is the foundation of growth. In leadership, this principle is even more powerful. Great leaders are not the ones who have all the answers. They're the ones willing to step into uncertainty and figure it out. They invite discomfort because they know that's where innovation begins. When leaders avoid hard decisions or uncomfortable truths, their teams stagnate. But when they lean into discomfort with honesty and courage, they inspire growth in others. The same applies to personal life. Growth happens when you choose to have that honest conversation instead of avoiding it. When you take responsibility for your mistakes instead of defending them. When you step into situations that make you nervous because deep down, you know they'll make you better. Each act of courage expands your capacity for the next challenge. Comfort may give you peace today, but discomfort builds strength for tomorrow. The more you practice being uncomfortable, the more capable you become. Over time, what once scared you becomes familiar and your comfort zone expands. That's how mastery is built. Not overnight, but step by step through small acts of courage repeated over time. Growth doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for presence. It asks that you show up when it's hard, stay when it's uncertain, and trust that discomfort is part of the journey. When you learn to see discomfort not as a threat but as an invitation, life opens up in extraordinary ways. So, the next time you feel uncomfortable, don't run from it, stay. Listen. Learn. That discomfort you feel isn't a signal to stop. It's a sign you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Because growth begins the moment comfort ends. And that's where transformation truly starts. Everything we do begins with belief. Before an action is taken, before a decision is made, before a dream is pursued, there is a belief that drives it. Belief is the foundation of behavior. It shapes our choices, influences our habits, and determines the limits of what we think is possible. What we believe about ourselves and the world around us defines how we show up every single day. Most people focus on behavior. They want to change what they do. They set goals, create routines, and promise themselves they'll try harder. But lasting change never starts with action, it starts with belief. You can't act consistently in a way that contradicts what you believe. If you believe you're not capable, you'll eventually act that way, no matter how hard you try to hide it. But if you believe you can learn, adapt, and improve, your actions will begin to align with that belief, and progress will naturally follow. Our beliefs form the lens through which we interpret every experience. If you believe the world is unfair, you'll see proof of unfairness everywhere. If you believe the world is full of opportunity, you'll start seeing possibilities that others overlook. This is why mindset and belief are inseparable. Your belief system creates your reality, not because the world changes, but because the way you see it does. Consider this. Two people face the same challenge. Say they both lose a major client or fail an exam. One person believes, I'm not good enough. The other believes, I can learn from this. That simple difference in belief leads to entirely different behaviors. One retreats, the other rebuilds. One stops trying, the other tries smarter. Their actions stem directly from their beliefs. Belief is what separates those who give up from those who grow. It's what keeps people moving forward when logic says they should quit. The most successful leaders and visionaries didn't have guarantees. They had belief. They believed in a vision that didn't exist yet, in potential that hadn't been proven in themselves when no one else did. That belief gave them the courage to take the first step and the resilience to take the next one after failure. In leadership, belief is contagious. The way a leader sees their people shapes how their people see themselves. When a leader believes in the potential of their team, they ignite confidence. But when leaders doubt or control out of fear, they drain energy and creativity. People don't rise to meet expectations, they rise to meet belief. When someone believes in us, we start to believe in ourselves. On a personal level, our behaviors mirror the stories we tell ourselves. If you tell yourself you're not disciplined, you'll act accordingly. If you tell yourself you're not confident, you'll behave hesitantly. But when you shift the narrative, when you say, I'm learning discipline, or I'm becoming more confident, your brain begins to look for evidence to support that belief. Bit by bit, your behavior follows. Belief is not pretending or wishing. It's choosing to trust that growth is possible, even when results aren't visible yet. It's an act of courage to believe in something you cannot yet see. Every transformation, whether personal, professional, or emotional, starts with one person deciding to believe that change is possible. So, ask yourself, what do you believe about yourself, your potential, your future? Because whatever you believe, you will prove yourself right. Your actions will rise or fall to match that belief. If you want to change your life, don't start what you do. Start with what you believe. Because behavior is just the echo of belief. And once you change what you believe about yourself, everything else begins to change too. Would you like me to expand the final keynote? Change the lens, change the life in the same inspiring and Simon Sinek style tone. The world you experience is not defined by what happens around you. It's defined by how you see it. Your perspective shapes your reality. The same situation can feel like a burden or a blessing, depending on the lens through which you view it. This is why two people can live the same life but experience entirely different worlds. It's not the circumstances that separate them, it's the lens. The lens represents your mindset, your beliefs, and your emotional focus. If your lens is clouded by fear, negativity, everything will appear darker. You'll see obstacles instead of opportunities, problems instead of possibilities. But if your lens is shaped by gratitude, curiosity, and purpose, the same world becomes a place of learning and growth. Life doesn't change, but the way you experience it does. We often think happiness and peace come from changing what's outside, a better job, a new relationship, more money. But the truth is, peace begins within. You can change your environment and still feel lost if your perspective stays the same. The transformation you're seeking doesn't start when life gets easier. It starts when your mindset gets clearer. Think about how a camera works. If the lens is out of focus, the picture is blurry, no matter how beautiful the scene is. The same happens in life. When your perspective is blurred by resentment, compare fear, you can't see clearly. But once you adjust the lens, once you focus on what truly matters, everything sharpens. You begin to notice beauty, lessons, and opportunities that were always there, waiting for you to see them. Changing the lens doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means interpreting it differently. Challenges will still come, but instead of asking, why, start asking, what is this teaching me? That small shift turns pain into purpose and setbacks into stepping stones. Perspective turns suffering into strength. The most inspiring people are not those who've lived easy lives. They're the ones who've learned to see meaning in their struggles. They've trained themselves to find light even in the darkest places. That's not Navy optimism, it's the ability to understand that life is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it. In leadership, this mindset is transformative. Great leaders help people change their lens. They remind their teams that a challenge is not a dead end, but a test of creativity. They teach others to see failure as feedback and uncertainty as possibility. When leaders shift perspective, they don't just change results, they change culture. In our personal lives, the same principle applies. When you look at people through a lens of compassion instead of judgment, relationships deepen. When you view obstacles through a lens of patience instead of frustration, resilience grows. Perspective is power. It determines the emotional tone of your entire life. But here's the key: changing the lens is a choice. Every morning, you decide how you'll see the world. You can focus on what's missing, or you can focus on what's meaningful. You can dwell on what went wrong, or you can learn from it. The world responds not to your situation, but to your state of mind. So, if your world feels heavy, maybe it's time to clean the lens. Shift your focus. Look again. With gratitude, with courage, with faith, you might discover that the life you've been chasing has been right in front of you all along, waiting for you to see it differently. Because when you change the lens, you change the story. And when you change the story, you change your life.